Have you unmuted?
Okay, the recording is in progress.
Okay.
Good morning. I don't remember the title or something else. But
Chutney.
apples are like chutneys, yes.
Well, at least you know why you're here.
The working title was APA's Past, Present, and Future. How come and why for? And the question is, why do we like APAs? Why do we continue to participate in APAs? Many of us on paper. And will anyone continue? Will anyone be in an APA 10 years from now? So those are a few things to ponder. I'm going to introduce. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves one by one and talk about their personal experience with APAs a bit. And Lenny has an 8-page outline of his but
which I put up on Discord if anybody knows how to log into Discord.
Right. So it will see the light of day, and hopefully he'll be able to summarize it for us in some regard. I am currently the OE of SAPS, which is the second oldest extant Spanish APA, and would love to talk to anyone about who's interested in joining. There are only 9 active members at the moment, so you don't have to write a lot of mailing comments. And I'm also in the turbocharged party animal APA, which is actually the APA based out of Madison, Wisconsin. And it will celebrate its 40th anniversary later this year. And next to me is Jeanne Gomoll, who needs to find a magic wand.
Okay, hear me?
No.
No.
That's the tiny button.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I thought once
Sort of.
I thought once the lights were the lights are always on.
Are you
Okay.
on T-Mobile?
Okay, I'll keep it close to my mouth. My first APA, actually no one in this room, except the people I told about it 5 minutes ago, know about it. When I was in college, just entered college, a bunch of us who knew each other during high school, we're trying to realize we're going to be scattered all over the world, and to keep in track of each other, we would write letters to one another. But we already realized that it was probably a doomed plan to actually keep in touch. So I suggested, why don't you all write your letters and send them to me? And I'll retype them and illustrate them and make a newsletter out of them. And we did that for a couple of years. And so when I discovered fandom many years later and heard about the women's APA, it all seemed vaguely familiar, only much more economically run. Nobody had to type all the letters. So, but that was my first APA for women's APA obsessions, when I discovered the network of feminist science fiction readers and fans and writers and everything. But most of my work, I think, has been done for the APA that Andy mentioned, and that Jim Hudson down the line there is the current OE of the turbocharged party animal. I've joined on 4 separate occasions. Once soon after it started, but then I think life intervened. My brother died, and various other things that I dropped out. I rejoined again when I realized there were a bunch of people new in town that I didn't even know, that I hadn't even met. It was a really good way to get to know them. And then when Scott moved in, he wanted to join, so we changed our name to our APA-zine to name to Union Street, which is where we lived. But then I started a business and dropped out again. And after both of us retired, I rejoined again, and this time under the name of Madison Foursquare. But I think we're up to, we're over 100 issues of Madison Foursquare. And my feeling about the reason I joined APAs has always been for personal reasons, that it connects with things I really care about and with activities I'm doing. And I've always been an artist, and so I've always viewed my APA as an piece of art, as well as a kind of outlet for my writing. I think that's it. That's a good introduction.
Okay. Why don't you pass your mic over to the other table, Jeanne? They'll have that in a minute. And Spike, you go.
Fortunately, I was a baton twirler in high school.
Spike, please.
Okay, the women's periodical, Turbo Charge Party Animal APA, APA of the Damned, Never Ending Meeting, and Zappa, and now I'm back in the women's periodical again, called TW. We call it TWP. I'm in it basically for the community, but I think Jeanne just said she identifies it as art or a kind of aspect of art, and I do too. So I like to make a paper zine, and I'm not an artist, but I care about that, and so that's an interest of mine. But it's the community that is the reason I'm involved.
Very cool. So, Nigel, I think is
okay. Nigel, I think everybody in the room kind of knows who I am. So my personal APA history is 46 years old this year, including a few years of dreaming about APAs, but not necessarily participating in them. I've been a member of 8 APAs. I think most of us up here, except for Lenny, have been in or are in Turbocharged Party Animal APA, which I joined in '86. So my first APA zine was called Maori Chronicles, #1, produced during the glorious afternoon of October 26th, 1979, and was intended for the first mailing of Aotearoa, which was a fledgling APA for New Zealand fans. It was kind of being used to kickstart New Zealand fandom again and to get people interested in writing and publishing. I was 15 at the time. And it was and this is really shows you how long ago it was. This was a wet print photocopy. Don't know if anyone remembers wet print photocopies. A single sheet was very embarrassing. I have basically rounded up all the issues and destroyed them. Except one. I still have my archive. Issue number two was probably more substantial at 6 pages. And again, I've rounded all of those up where I can. And I'm not actually joking, because a number of people have unfortunately passed away or they've given up on fandom, and so I've been able to accumulate their fanzine collections, which have included some of these embarrassing issues. The issue 2 also had my first attempt at mailing comics. I really did not know what I was doing. So again, a reason for rounding them up, destroying them. Too many inappropriate jokes. Issue 3 has been allowed to survive. And it was the only written account of my first job at Heads and Tails bookshop, which was a science fiction bookshop in Auckland, New Zealand at the time. I've moved countries 4 times in that time, and so I've published across 4 different countries. And I've been in 8 APAs, so which is kind of amazing. Currently, I'm only in Zappa, which I rejoined after a gap of like 35 years. And as some of you know, Zappa is now 29 out of 30 members, publishing 500 to 600 pages every 2 months, and everybody is at least two mailings behind in their mailing comment. I think one of the things that I enjoy about APA, so I'll explain on that a little bit later, is it really helps people scattered around the world to stay in contact. And mailing comments constitute this like continuing conversation. There's a lot of mailing comments that pick up on something that somebody said the previous mailing, previous issue, and it continues on. That's like one of the key attractions for me. I also use it as personal journaling. I use that to share with other people about what I'm up to, especially those who I don't see because I don't live in their country. So I'll pass over to Lenny.
No, I want to skip Lenny.
Okay,
Let's go to Jim first, because I'm going to give Lenny more time.
I know.
Yeah. So Jim.
Whatever.
Jim Hudson, or sometimes Jamie Hudson, as you'll see tomorrow. But anyway, gender is a separate thing. Shows up in the app though. I'm currently running with Turbo. We're running monthly, I guess, since Nigel mentions accounts, we run 25 to 30 people involved, fewer accounts, about 100, 150 pages in each issue. I brought a few samples for people to look at. And I also need to deliver the latest distribution to Andy, since we collated it last Sunday. And hand delivery, it's a special service.
Carrie and I did the cover this month. So we got postcards from the World's Fair, including Expo 67.
But my first apazines were don't have them anymore, but we're in 72 or 73 for Apanesca, which I was in up until sometime in the 80s. And also involved in, back for the 80 WorldCon, because I've mostly been a convention running fan. We had an internal APA for the staff. That was our social media communication among the organization. And I was in that a lot. And took a hiatus, kids, life, whatever. Got back into Turbo several years ago and have been having a lot of fun. Lenny.
Right.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll try to skip the long version.
Post your mouth.
I'm Lenny Bailes, and my APA history goes back to spring 1963, after I joined the N3F and discovered the N3F had an APA called the Nevers Amateur Press Alliance. And I still remember when the first mailing came with the first Jiffy Bag. I opened it up and I looked at all the multicolored paper. And the first fanzine I read was something called the Coventranian Gazette, purporting to be from Jomar Lynn, a name that I recognized from A.E. Van Vought's novel, The Wizard of Lynn. In finer reading, I discovered it was actually published by a New York fan named Rich Brown, too modest to want to spell his name with capital first letters. The zine told of a tribe of immortal beings who were the secret avatars of a group of Los Angeles science fiction fans that traveled to and from a super science realm in another dimension through clever use of James Blish's spin dizzy. Another thing that I recognized, spin dizzy, from James Blish's Cities in Flight. But in reality, it turned out that the secret other universe existed only in the minds of the people that were members of Coventry, which was invented as a writing game for them to improve their writing skills. After I joined that, my buddy Arnie Katz and I thirsted for more APAs. We went to Discon 1, and this big blonde guy with a sword who was in reality Bruce Pell's almost mild librarian, signed us up for SAPS. So I was on SAPS, and then SEPA, the Southern Fan Press Alliance, AMPA, the Off Trail Magazine Publishers Association, the Cult. Then came the weekly APAs, APA F from the Fana class, APA L in Los Angeles, and eventually, after many years, FAPA. Arnie Katz and I felt that the Cult had too much vicious backbiting and argument, so we actually formed our own cult-like APA called TAPS. And that's an APA that I founded. And I also have belonged to a number of other little fleeting APAs with 16 or 17 members whose names are fairly unknown in modern times. But most of that doesn't exist now. And my only APA activity currently is I'm a member of a little APA, which used to be secret, but isn't secret anymore. It's just private. The members don't care if you know they belong to it and that it exists. They just are picky and they vote to see who they'll let in. All right, I guess that's enough for now.
Is that the Cult
the Coventranian Gazette, the first magazine I ever read, that was far out.
Yeah.
What was the relationship between Lil Appa and Appanage, Lenny? Was there one? Were they combined into something
No,
else?
Little Appa was combined with something called L'Assemblage, I think. L'Assemblage, and another one called App Assembly. And those were the three secret appas that eventually all merged into one appa that retained the name Little Appa. And most of the original people in Little Appa are dead now. Gordon Eklund and Barbara Silverberg survive to this day.
Cool, thank you.
Oh, and Gina Clark, I think, was one of the original members.
All right, well, thank you, guys. That was very cool. You answered some of my questions in some part, but I think I still want to come back to some question of like, is this now become an impossibly rich person's hobby? I mean, I think about, you know, talking about wet photocopy and hectograph and other, you know, forms of reproduction used in the past, and their great attraction for those fans was the fact that they were affordable, that they could actually afford to do them, unlike the other more attractive forms of reproduction. Now we won't settle for something that's not pretty. And so I just don't even, I try not to think about how much money I'm spending to produce these things.
Can I
mean no
give you
more
a data point?
Very good.
I'm in I'm in Last Appa. The dues, which cover mailing and the manila envelope, are $35 a year. And the OE does repro for us, which is essentially 1 cent a page.
Right.
That's not a rich person's hobby.
Well, okay.
As long as the APA is as small as Last APA is, and most APAs are these days, right now the copy count is 10. We wish it were higher, but it's only 10.
Right. So that's the thing about the Turbo APA, is that there currently our copy count is 25.
And we frequently have like 15, and we frequently have zines that go above 20 pages. We frequently have zines that go above 20 pages long.
Right.
So, but
How many do you mail? How many do you mail?
see, that's partially what I would react to Andy's question is, I'm not comparing it to just how much money I'm spending on this hobby as opposed to other hobbies. I'm comparing to how much I used to spend on doing a Percy, where I would have to duplicate hundreds, pay for postage.
Right.
It's certainly a subset of fandom that a small subset of fandom that I'm able to contact with my zines. But it's a community, and I get a huge amount of feedback and friendship from it. And so I'm spending quite a bit of money on it, partially because I own a really high-end color printer, and able to do that myself. But that's sunk investment from when I had a business. But it's expensive. But you've got to decide what it's compared to.
But then you had this fight. But then, okay, so Anne's APA is one of a number of APAs in the recent decades that have gone entirely electronic. And do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, I basically dropped out soon after it went virtual. It was COVID, right? So that was the final straw. But certainly there's not a big cost to that APA because everybody just uploads PDFs, etc. And some people have really beautiful zines, and some people still don't have beautiful zines, as far as I know, in that APA. But you know, I dropped out because I liked having the paper connection. And in fact, I was having it printed for me from the PDFs in Australia. Again, this is because I had the money, and I love the print shop in Australia that was doing my zines for me. They would send me illos of rhinos and things to add. They were lovely. So I said, you print it for me, I'll pay you But the postal system could not deliver it in time for me to make any comments because it was COVID. Australia shut down. So I could maybe go back and be in it, but now I would have to read 400 pages, 600 pages. It was immediate bloat, as I saw from my last 2 issues where they went virtual. It was like, oh, now everybody's like not even editing themselves.
Right, they're just completely unleashed. There's no reason to limit your page count because it doesn't cost any more than 2 pages do.
I mean, I rejoined Anzappa after it went virtual because that was a selling point for me. I didn't have to print and mail something to Australia. Anzappa, of course, is Australia, New Zealand Amateur Publishing Association. So it was primarily based for Australians, some New Zealanders. I'm now a token New Zealander in there. So I was kind of recruited to come in and make sure that there was a Kiwi fan represented. But, I mean, we've got up to 700 pages over the last year and a half. And it really is it's not the cost of doing something virtually, it's the time cost of being able to read and respond. And every 2 months, like we barely got through one mailing. The next mailing is there. It's like, oh, I haven't written anything yet. So you have to kind of keep up. So the APA has a running balance of funds which have been collected over the years, left over from when it was being mailed out, and those have now been invested in online storage of the mailings for the benefit of everybody. And so that was all voted on just recently, and everyone was in agreement with that. As a archivist, fantasy historian, I'm totally in favor of preserving fanzines in a way that makes them more accessible to people. I said before there was 30, Anzappa has 30 members. We've got one free membership at the moment. So if anybody's interested in getting a telephone book every 2 months, I'm more than welcome to come and ask me, and I can give you the contact info.
Nigel, do you have a sense of an ongoing conversation among all the members with those numbers?
There is. I mean, some members put through 50, 60, 70 page contributions, kind of replicating what FAPA used to be, which was a fanzine distribution mechanism. And so they're not necessarily produced for the APA, they're like produced for general distribution, just distributed as well through the APA. But yeah, there are continuing conversations. There's some people.
I think that's against the rules, actually. I remember them.
Yeah, but
I mean, some of the content could be repurposed, but
the official bloody editor, which is the title of the OE and Anzappa, arbitrarily applies to rules.
Okay.
as he sees
Never
fit.
Bruce once.
But yeah, there is this continuing conversation. There's some people we have longer conversations with than others because some people post more than just the reviews of all the books that they've read over the last year. They engage with others. I think that's one of the challenges of APAs, that you have different personalities. You have some people who are very engaging with other people, and then you have others who refuse to do mailing lists, which kind of goes against the spirit of an APA, in my opinion.
Well, and I've been running SAPs as a kind of a hybrid of an online APA and a paper APA, in that we have 2 members. We have Lee Edmonds in Australia, who is, so much more able to participate by the fact that he can email me his zine and I print it for him here, and he doesn't have, and then I turn around and I scan the fanzines that are submitted to me on paper by members like the 94-year-old Burnett Tosky, who does not know from PDF files. But so I scan the paper submissions, and then I turn them all into PDFs and email them to Lee. And so he gets SAPs turned around in 48 to 72 hours after the deadline, instead of 6 to 8 weeks, which was the standard for most of his experience. So I love the convenience of it, And I'm more than able to print. I mean, since I only need to make 10 copies to cover everyone in SAPS, I'm perfectly happy to deal with people's duplication issues. So when the APA ceases to be such a tiny jewel-like creature at some point, I may not be quite so sanguine about these free services, but for the moment it makes perfect sense. But Jim, we've talked about doing it with Turbo and now and then in the past, and you're willing to do the odd zine, you know, like a one-sheeter from Marilyn Holt. But we've actually gone. We've never embraced the virtual APA idea.
No, there were people who had privacy concerns about that. And there were also, just aside from a few people like Jeanne who actually put theirs up in the net, most people just didn't seem to want to create the PDF and put it out there. I'm not really sure why in that case, but you know, our mailing costs, the outgoing mail is probably, well, it's $10 for the people who want priority mail so that they get it within a reasonable amount of time, and running about $5 a month for the rest of the folks. It's about, we mail out about 10 and the rest of the group all pick them up at our house. They're all local to Madison. The harder problem, I think, which Andy, for example, has dealt with, is getting the paper produced and to Madison in a reasonable amount of time. And that typically has wound up being, for most folks, find a copy shop in the area, send your zine electronically to them, and then have somebody, Andy's sister, Scott Custis, those are the two primary subjects on that, pick it up and get delivered to the collation.
Like,
I am currently in the women's periodical, and if I get the comments done early enough and allow 2 weeks, I can mail a paper copy to the UK and have A4 paper. And I have done it, but I have not got the cadence yet. So I do email a zine to a friend who's in the APA, one or the other volunteers for me, and it gets printed there. And then it's expensive to mail it to the US members, but we pay a little. We basically have an account, so we pay for that shipping to us. So it's kind of we have friends that make the. I think I could still hang on with paper, but I wouldn't be in every issue like I am now.
right. And so hearing all of this, Lenny,
I just wanted to talk about
well, no,
my
let me ask you a question though, and then you can talk. Then you can fail to answer it as you see. Hearing that, in fact, these are hunting for members and willing to, you know, duplicate stuff for you on site and generally make it very easy to participate. Does it sound attractive to you at this point? Would you consider returning to APA hacking?
Before I talk about the fact that
Hi, Lenny.
before I talk about that fact that little APA is cheap, there are basically 13 people in it, and it follows the roots of the APAs, the cult, PAPs, and even the weeklies, which is there's a collating person. Everyone sends their pages to the collating person, and usually you just write something in Microsoft Word, print it to a PDF, and the distributions run like 30 to 40 pages every month. And the official collator, they used to call the little APA one the GOAT, is just in charge of mailing them out. And it's just first class postage for 13 people. There's a couple people in the United Kingdom, and those are a little more expensive. But basically, everyone has to kick in $40 or $50 every 8 or 9 months. And you know, Microsoft Word or Open Office or Libra, you know, that doesn't cost anything. You just type, save to PDF, and send. And then the mailing shows up. So it isn't at all expensive for us. But the other question you asked, why would I think about joining SAPS or FAPA? It's kind of like, I believe that the readability and the reason that I want to participate in APAs is because of the talents and writing skills of the people who are in the APA. And, you know, in some cases, because they've proven themselves to me, because I know that I like reading them and I know that I want to read what they want to say. And so those are the things that would influence me as to whether I wanted to join an APA. I would want to say, oh, I really enjoy reading this. It makes me laugh. It makes me want to respond. It wants me to write pages of things in response, tell things that I'm interested in, recommend. And I know the people that I'll be writing to want to read what I say and respond to it. I guess the other thing I would want to mention is that everyone who has not read the script for this should hunt up Andy's issue of Captain Flashback, where he has a story which was a radio play called Received and Enjoyed, but No Comment, which is basically the history of the Donut Amateur Press Association. It kind of describes what this is like over a long-term period, you know, with the different personalities coming in and out and their ups and downs. And that's what's interesting.
The play is actually titled Read and Enjoyed, but No Content, which is some, one of the characters claims that that's what remake really means. Read and enjoyed, but no content. Thank you for the plug.
So it's about the ability of the participants.
When you're ready, I
No,
know.
use it.
Okay,
Use.
I was just saying that basically for me, it's about whether I really am interested in reading what people are saying and feel stimulated to want to write back.
So if Andy were to give you a list of the members, would that sway your opinion?
It might.
right, it would have the potential. John D. Barry. All right, so
Andy Hooper,
apparently there's
yeah.
a comment online here which is so good that we really want to interject.
Well, the reason
There's a question in the Discord.
Yes.
it's by Petra Mitchell, and she said with the Zoomers rediscovering and reviving all forms of physical media, it feels like the time could be right to introduce young fans to the concept of APAs. And we, in fact, the Turbo APA have recently attracted a couple people that are hardly connected to fandom at all. And I remember I was talking to Patty Lucas, I think you might have remembered her, about how the Apple works. She's recently had a whole bunch of changes in her life, and I thought she might enjoy it. And I was describing how the Apple works. She was getting more and more enthusiastic. And then I was talking about getting copies made to the OE, and she said, "Oh, it's on paper." But that ended up being a selling point for her, and we ended up using the animal called guinea pig for the symbol of our Turbo Apple party, because guinea pigs like paper. I agree. I think this is a great time to introduce people who are tired of doing everything online, wanting to make something physical.
Okay, and I'm going to cut you off just for a second. All right, we're like 2/3 of the way through the program, I believe, and so it's time for a break and to distribute apazines around the room. Jeanne made a whole bunch of copies of her beautiful Madison Foursquare. So if the lovely Jeannie Bowman would pass these out to the room, and then after that, anybody who doesn't already have my zine, I'd love to give you one. Oh no!
Oh,
Earthquake. Okay. All right, and then Nigel, can you remember what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Yes, what I was gonna say was, now it's my brain. One of the things that fanzine, and I'm saying fanzine fandom, has had to contend with over the years with trying to attract new people. So we're very self-referential, we're very historical focused, and that puts people off.
I agree with that.
One of the differences with APAs is that it's very much in the moment. It's talking about people's lives, what they're reading, what they're viewing, interacting to what other people are saying about those things, and it's a good counterpoint for regular fanzines, which kind of even though most of them have moved online, the fanzines and whatever, they still are talking to people who want to be involved in that specific area of fanishness. And I think there's more potential to get people involved in APAs now than regular fanzine publishing.
Yeah.
So,
I had some other comment. Well, can I make
Go ahead.
another comment about that?
Yeah, all right. Spike first, then we'll go
Okay, good.
back right to Len.
I was contacted a few months ago. A friend of mine's 30-year-old daughter said, I was talking to my mom, and she said she doesn't know anything about fanzines, but I heard you knew something, and I'm interested. My friends and I are interested in having some kind of publication on paper that we can put our ideas down. We don't have to, it's not on the internet, and we can make it so it's artistic. She said, I was on the yearbook staff in high school, and she's a math major, but she was on the yearbook staff, and I would like to do. And so, I sent her a copy of my APAzine and some carefully redacted, the rules of the couple of APAs that I had the rules for, and she's looking at it. So, communication, it's a good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think that the periodicity of it is also attractive to a lot of people. The idea of a recurring deadline has always been one of the really strong things about being in an APA. Go ahead, Lenny.
All right, well, in a real sense,
Mike, Lenny.
in a real sense, my APA today is the fascist-owned, evil, corporate, destructive thing called Facebook. And the reason it is because I try not to care too much about that. And when the evil empire strikes and tries to censor and get rid of my friends, I work with them to try to get them back on because they're my friends and I want to continue to hear from them. But the thing that disappoints me about Facebook is that the ideal platforms for what Facebook does were really LiveJournal and Dreamlit.
Yeah.
Because they supported HTML programming, and you could not only comment, but you could create fanzines with HTML within the pages. And I'm really, I have not been on Dreamlit in a long time, and LiveJournal, I talk about that in my handbook. In my handout, everyone fled LiveJournal because the communists took it over. So there aren't very many of us on there anymore, but there are some of us still on Dreamlit, and there's 5 or 6 of us here at the convention that could talk to you about that. But Facebook, you know how Elvis Costello wrote, "Radio is cleaning up the nation." Facebook Reels. You would not think this unless you watched Facebook Reels, but that they are a melting pot of clever people. You can find songs by your favorite bands that you've never heard of. You can find Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about the crap that Donald Trump does. And you can also find 20 and 22-year-old people that are highly literate doing the same thing. Facebook Reels are subversive and also entertaining. And in addition to reading the posts of my friends, I can sometimes spend hours going through Facebook Reels because there's good stuff. There's real people talking about things.
How do they compare to TikTok? It sounds kind of
It's
similar.
not appealing to me. And that just may be because I'm too old for TikTok, and I hope I'm not too old for sex.
Well, a lot of Facebook Reels come from TikTok.
That's cross posting.
Yeah, they originate on TikTok and then we see them on Facebook.
Well, Facebook steals things from TikTok. People on Facebook steal from everywhere when they post their reels. But also you can post as long as you want. You don't have to do short posts. You can write extensive posts about movies and books. I'm a member of something on Facebook called the Science Fiction Book Club, and they're just like us. Some of them have read every magazine from 1930 to now, and some of them are into Alistair McReynolds, Jeanne Gomoll. The people in that group are highly literate, and another thing that made me start joining APAs, I wanted to talk about science fiction. That's why I joined the Genie Science Fiction Roundtable, and that you can find that. So what I recommend, if you are on Facebook, you have to be patient, and you have to skip through some junk, and just click until you find something interesting. But Facebook, it spies on you, and it knows what you like and what you don't like. But it tries to show you what you like. All right.
Okay. So
Hours and hours of entertainment on Facebook.
the interesting sense that I get is that in some ways the APA is integral to the invention of fandom, and that you can argue that the AJs, the mundane amateur press associations that people like Lovecraft were participating in before fandom ever existed, kind of pointed the way to fandom. And in the same way now, it's like an APA is sort of a proto-molecule that has, that implies a whole universe of fandom. That once you become interested in these specific little parts, you get sucked in completely and remade in the molecule's image. Thoughts?
Can I throw a comment on?
All right, we're starting to have questions in the audience. Janice.
Well, I wanted to make a couple of comments. I wanted to make a comment on one something Lenny said, which is I'd only want to join if there were people in the APA that I wanted to read. And part of the reason that I joined APAs was to meet other people, to make new friends, to discover other fans in other locales that I didn't know, and to also just read a wide variety of things. None of the APAs, I've been in 8 or 9 over the course of my life, and none of them just talked about books. None of them.
No, and that's one of the things we were touching on earlier, that it's wonderful in an APA to have a variety of approaches. That you have some people who are very diligent about writing comments and write, that you'll get a comment from at least 1 or 2 people because they cover every mailing. And there are other people that don't. And, there's a kind of an understanding that your interaction is a little bit more distant and you're not as compelled to write them exactly the same number of comments. And so I think it accommodates a lot of different approaches. All you have to do is actually meet the deadline. And so my question is monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly?
Depends.
Or weekly.
Or weekly, FL.
Or weekly.
For me, monthly is the ideal. I do my apazine with my partner Scott, and he can read it and make comments in a week or 2, and then I take it and finish up, and we could get it easily done within our month. But I wouldn't want to wait longer than that for the comments that I very carefully wrote, spent a lot of time putting into it to get responses in like 3, 4.
Or at least be seen.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So I month is about the shortest I could do, but I absolutely wouldn't want to go for a long distance between them because we're already approaching the situation where a person talking on the radio to someone in a spaceship is traveling beyond Mars. We've already got this huge interval. The further out we get, the less interactive it gets. Yes. And by the way, I'm with you. I joined the APA because to meet the people that are in it, not to connect with people I already know.
Well, I mean,
That's true, too.
specifically, when we moved out to the West Coast from Ann Arbor, I asked George Laskowski Land, who lived in Michigan and who knew everything about everybody, is there an APA I can join in California that will allow me to meet some people out in California where we're moving? And it turned out there weren't really very many Bay Area people in it at the time, although right now the plurality of the membership is ironically in the Bay Area. Laugh FAPA.
The question is still
Laugh
payments,
FAPA.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Is
So-
TWP monthly or bi-monthly?
It's every other month, and that works for me because it does take 10 days for it to be sent to me. But I do understand having a friend there, and on Zappa, there were two people in the doing a zine, and it takes some time for both of you to pass it around and read, when it was paper especially. But no, every other month is about right because I don't worry about it, or I'm anxious until I get it because I'm looking forward to it. But it's not a panic there, and as I said, I've got 10 days to get it in the mail, or to mail it to Britain if I'm going to print it here. So I need that time, absolutely, but it feels very fresh still every other month. And it's a very small group of people too, probably 10 people less than Turbo. Turbo's about 30.
I think
25.
that's 23 zines, but we've got lots of couples that do the zine together. So.
Okay, well, I think we've got one. Somebody might correct me in the Zoom.
Yeah, with Turbo, it is a monthly APA, but the MINAC is every other month. We have
Right,
about a third of our members who only show up every other month.
And Zappa is every 2 months because it is distributed by PDF. In America, if you get your content to Australia by midnight on Thursday, on Saturday you've got an actual mailing. So David Grigg, who's the OE, really does a stellar job of turning everything around in basically two days. That's his weekend gone really in assembling everything. I think that's my ideal frequency, every 2 months. One thing that I forgot to mention before was I said I've been in 8 APAs, currently in 1. There's actually 2 others that I didn't talk about, and these are like specialist APAs. One was I was the OE years ago, 20 odd years ago, of the fan history APA, and that went out to people who were specifically interested in fan history, wanted to talk about fan history and comment on that. It kind of predated the internet. When the internet and e-fanzine started taking off, that then replaced the need for a physical APA talking about fan history because it was just so much more being talked about online at that point. And the other one is Wolf, which is distributed every year at the Worldcon.
Right.
I've helped assemble that again through the whole grading, scanning process. In the past, I haven't really contributed all that much to Wolf over the years, and I just realized I want to contribute to this year's, and I'm going to pick up where I left off my last Wolf contribution, which was 4 years ago. So maybe 4 years is not my desired frequency, but it's what I'm going to work off. I think the first online APA that I knew of was Inhalant Poise, which was done by Nigel Richardson. And in preparation for this, I was reminded of the fact that for 14, that was month 3, for 14 months, he kept on reaching out to me. Are we ever going to hear from you? Are we ever going to? And then he dropped it because I never actually ended up getting my acting. So.
Did you say Ann Zappa is now just electronic?
And Zappa is now electronic, yeah.
Okay.
Lenny, do you want to comment on that at all?
Just one more time.
I don't see why it has to be on paper. Science fiction fans invented the communication paradigms that formed the shape of the internet. And a lot of them, They didn't know who Bob Tucker was and go to conventions, but they were fans in their own lifestyles and philosophies and outlooks, you know, and that's a whole other thing, like the internet culture that has grown and expanded and still exists to this day. And you have to kind of be choosy. I'm on Blue Sky mostly because I enjoy people that are not afraid to speak the truth about the crap that's going on in the country. But you don't have to be that. I'm a comic book reader. There was, by the way, a paper app called Kappa Alpha, which was a paper app about comics. But if you still like comics, I mean the good ones, there are a lot of bad ones. All the great creators of comic books that are still alive, they're all on Blue Sky. And you can talk to them there, and they love when people talk to them and still want to tell them that they enjoy their books. So that's just another facet of that. And also anybody that's still a science fiction geek, you should definitely check out the Science Fiction Book Club on Facebook. They're just as smart as we are and just as well read as we are. The only difference is that a lot of them didn't start publishing fanzines. They just read.
Okay. Sorry, I was ego scanning. Wow. Okay. Jeannie's been waiting a long time.
Fanzines in general distribution are highly visible. APA participation is opaque, and I'm really curious in this group who all here in the audience are part of APAs.
Currently or in the past?
Both.
Currently.
I'd be interested in currently and also who has never.
All right. So show your hand if you've ever been in an APA. Yeah. Everybody. Now leave your hand up if you're still in an APA right now. And that's about 40%, 45%. Almost half the room. That's pretty good. Oh, and yeah, we're all in something. Yeah.
They all raised their hand.
They're here not because it's
Okay.
chutney.
I'm raising my hand because
Yes.
I have a FAPA is a little different from all the APAs you guys are currently in, except Andy has just joined FAPA, in that, okay, it comes out, mailings come out quarterly, and people are not required to participate every issue or every other issue. They're required to do 8 pages a year. So you can be in FAPA once a year and meet your requirement. And I was thinking, but my impression has always been is that in FAPA, people are much more likely to do longer essays and other kinds of material and not focus much on mailing comments.
Yeah,
So
because you're putting in your own zine. It's not just a zine. It's an entire fanzine that you're putting in.
It's
right?
ironic because Donald Wollheim introduced fandom to the mailing comment in FAPA. But you're right that FAPA has always somewhat emphasized fanzines that were prepared for a larger audience and not necessarily focused on the membership of FAPA alone. Whereas SAPS has always been much more clubby and insular and standoffish and has always emphasized mailing comments and interaction with the zines that other people produce much more than FAPA. I can't really tell you why.
My understanding was it Wollheim who created FAPA?
Yeah.
My understanding was that FAPA was going to be for everybody's circulation zines or general circulation zines, so they wouldn't have to go through the work of mailing out 65 individual copies.
And Wollheim undermined his own project by then beginning to write specific comments that would only appear within the mailing. See, so
people continue to do their general zines and created zines just for FAPA.
Right.
So
it's ironic, but it seems to fit FAPA.
And a lot of people put their gen zines through FAPA.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's,
yeah.
So
There's
one other,
definitely other.
Here,
I was going to quickly say one other thing about FAPA that was unique is that there was always so many people wanting to join FAPA back in the day that another APA, Shadow FAPA, started up for all the people on the wait list. I was a member of Shadow FAPA for a while, and then I got into FAPA, and by then I was moved on to other things, and I dropped out again. But I was in Shadow FAPA, and I think that's kind of weird that one FAPA begat another APA.
All right, I got a call on Carrie, or I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, yours question. Okay, so then back with the mask. I'm sorry. Amy, of course.
Well, I actually started BIWA because AWA had too many people on the wait list. I said, that's crazy. And I shifted the focus slightly so that it would be more international. And that was a lot of fun. The question I had was, what is, to those who've been in both kinds, how does an online APA feel different or not from a print APA? I know we talked about it a little, but I kind of wanted to get some sense of that feel. Because if I want to start another international women's APA at some point, online seems to be the way to go.
I think that especially if we're hunting for those elusive people under 50 to participate in our general zeitgeist, having that speed of return that online interaction allows is really critical. If we make them wait for the U.S. mail to first deliver their zine and then bring it back to them, I think people just do not have the patience for that. So
I too know that there's like it.
Well, but now see, Patty Lucas, who you were touting as a young person, is over 70, isn't she? Yeah, Elizabeth's younger, but yeah, Patty's a returning gaffer.
That's true.
I mean, one thing I'll add about an online app, like, and I've been in 3 online apps, but Zappa, everybody produces their fanzine as if it's going to be printed and distributed. It's like, it's covers, there's like design, it's not just like hastily put together and emailed over. One other APA in Halem Poise, which Nigel Richardson started up when he moved to Texas several decades ago, was all just, people would just do it by email, and then he would just pull together all everyone's emails that had been sent to him. And then the other APA, which was APA, the New Zealand one I mentioned, that tried to survive in an online format for a couple of mailings, and it failed. People just didn't grasp it, which was
Why
kind of
did
sad.
it fail?
Because people just didn't grasp the concept of doing an APA.
What did they do with it instead of what you wanted?
It just died.
Oh, they just got
disinterested.
They didn't want to post it.
Yeah.
I would join an online APA. To me, that would feel like a blog that I would have to keep up with, and maybe I would comment on when I had something to do. But a huge online audience that shifts in membership would not feel like a community to me that I'm getting together in this, that I'm making this physical thing for and sharing with this small group. Yeah, I would have an entirely different feeling. And even though there are many people whose writing I really enjoy and do blogs, I hardly ever keep up with them. So I'm likely, if for some reason Turbo changed into an online APA, I'd probably just drift away from it.
I really like the compartmentalization of a mailing APA, that you get this much at this period, and then you have a deadline, and I don't want it to turn into a bulletin board, right? And I'm curious how you manage that.
Go.
Oh, okay. Well, one advantage of a physical APA that I use is when I am reading through it, I read it with a pencil. And if I see something I want to comment on later, I make a little check mark by that line and a little notation in the border to remind myself what I wanted to say in the mailing comments. And if you're reading online, you can't do that, or you have to bounce back and forth between windows and comment at that exact
Yeah,
time.
you have to open a notepad, and it really helps to have two screens.
So it's just easier to just have the physical thing and have a pencil, and then do all your mailing comments when you're producing your zine.
But I want an excellent point. To respond to what Amy said, though, I of course ruined the whole equation that you're saying, because I take my apazine that I distribute to 25 to 30 people through TurboAppa, but then I post it online at efanzines.com. And the reason for this is that I grew up fanishly reading fanzines by people like Greg Calkins and Red Boggs, who would have letters of comment from people outside the APA in the back of their fanzines because they were sending out to a wider audience. And I always liked that. I loved getting, you know, a little message from Ted Johnstone stuck into a Red Boggs fanzine, even though Ted was not currently in FAPA. And so I now compose my APA work with an idea that people are going to read it that don't have any reference to the APA. So I try very hard to establish context at the beginning of my mailing comment by saying something along the lines of, you and I have been talking about the pirate ship of Jean Lafitte, or, you know, to let people know why I'm going into the subject, you know, and I get a lot of positive feedback on that, and I feel like it helps the people in the APA too, because they can't remember what the hell they wrote in their zine. Where are we? Oh gosh, we're over time, but we got one more. Rob wants to contribute.
Just simply addition, there's another fine fanzine that does the same thing, introduces itself to tennis circulation as well. It's spread out as aficionados.
Yeah.
Right,
but
that's an excellent zine. Yeah.
But I'll point out that he doesn't include mailing comments in his generally distributed zine, just letters of comment from outsiders.
Yeah. Right, and see, and the reason that I've joined FAPA is to try and get Fred to join SAPS. Because, and we talked at WorldCon, and I observed that, you know, you don't put comments to other FAPA zines in Lofgiranost. And so, you know, you'd be very welcome to submit the same thing to SAPS. You don't have to change it at all. And you get some feedback from the SAPs, maybe more than FAPA, because that's what we do with SAPs. And so I unilaterally joined FAPA to encourage Fred, and we'll see if it works.
It probably will. Fred was telling me that he's pretty disgruntled with FAPA at the moment, because of the lack of comments.
Oh, okay. Well, see, I've got to follow up with a lot. Right? I mean, if I send a letter of comment, I think I'll close the deal. So.
Andy, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
I always have to look this. I always have to look this up, and Google Gemini knows, and Fancyclopedia doesn't. Which issue of Captain Flashback is the play that read and enjoyed, but no content?
I serialized it in 6 issues.
All right.
So I don't know. Yeah.
Google Gemini knows. So if you ask it, it will show you which issue it starts in.
Okay, excellent.
All right.
Thank you, and thank Google Gemini.
A couple comments.
I have it on my phone.
All right, we're going to finish up with a couple of notes from Discord here.
So I asked Claire Brierly, who's in TWP with me, and she's the OE right now, and she's in Zappa for a long time with me, what the difference, you know, between being online and paper apps, because she does that every other month or every month. And she said it's complicated because of one of the apps she's in is overseas. Maintaining membership in Zappa when it was paper was getting expensive, even using the printers in Melbourne, which we all sent it to the printers in Melbourne after a while. And it was taking an increasing amount of time to reach us with less time to comment. I appreciate being able to do things on paper for TWP, but I also appreciate not needing to worry about the page count for the digitized version of Zappa. But it's important Zappa isn't exactly online. It is a PDF that you can print or read online. So it's not really an online
Yeah.
Right.
APA. And I
That's
think
really
also
helpful.
Mark Plummer said that's an important point. It really is it's only the distribution of NZAPA that's electronic. It's not really online.
Right, and I have people, there are people in SAPs that are also concerned about having their address posted online. So we keep it within the membership, and none of that goes up to e-fanzines. So, is that it? We've run over by like 10 minutes, I think, or something.
Five.
Which is 5. That's not bad. There's one more back there. I can see better if I take these glasses off. No, I think we're finally done. So,
Yay.
thanks very much. Thanks to everybody. And if I haven't given you either of these fanzines, please come and help yourself.
And there's some more of my apathy behind Jeannie there.
Yeah, if anyone,